Happy Friday, Talita. I have this book called Nadias Hands, and I chose to read it because today we are going to interview a third grader, and his mom often does henna tattooing on her children's hands, and it looks amazing. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, and I thought you guys could learn with me while reading this book. Nadias Hands by Karen English, illustrated by Jonathan Weiner. And then this is a little bit of a note. It tells us a bit about some of the words we're going to read about. We're going to learn about kebabs, mehndi, shalwar, kameez, and shaber. Shaber is an Arabic word meaning patience, to accept waiting. I need a lot of shaber in my life. For Auntie Layla's wedding, the aunts decided that it was Nadia's turn to be the flower girl. One cousin who'd been flower girl for the last wedding said, "I forgot and sprinkled rose petals down just one side of the aisle. Don't make that mistake." Another cousin who had been flower girl for Auntie Sheila's wedding told her, "Oh, I ate too many kebabs the night before and got sick and had to run to the bathroom right in the middle of walking down the aisle. Take my advice. Stay away from kebabs." Yummy. Kebabs are so yummy. "Be careful of frozen feet," another cousin added. She had also been a flower girl once. "I got stage fright just as I was about to walk down the aisle. My feet froze." So many things to remember. It is a big deal to be a flower girl in a wedding. I've never been, but my daughter got to. "You know what, Nadia?" Auntie Layla said. She lowered her voice and put her lips close to Nadia's ear. "I have a feeling you're going to be a very good flower girl." Nadia smiled, relieved. "I have a special purpose," Auntie Layla added. Nadia waited. "Aunty Amina's coming Saturday to put the mehndi on your hands." Auntie Layla's eyes danced and sparkled. "Just you wait." Nadia's smile made her face feel stiff. She didn't want the mehndi. It would make her hands orange. It wouldn't wash off. And she didn't want to go to school like that on Monday. She was worried. But on Saturday, Nadia forgot her worry and woke up filled with anticipation. The aunties came one by one to help with the wedding preparations. One brought the silky peach-colored shalwar and kameez Nadia would wear for her duties as flower girl. Another brought tiny gold earrings. Another came to curl Nadia's hair. Finally, in came Aunty Amina with her bag of mehndi. "Nadia, you go play while Auntie gets everything ready," Mommy told her. Auntie took her bag from the mixing bowl, the spatula, and the thin wooden stick that looked like a sculptor's tool. She looked over at Nadia. "I'll call you when it's ready, Nadia. It has to sit a while." At last, Auntie called Nadia to the kitchen. "Sit," she said. Nadia sat. "Hold out your hands." Nadia held out her hands, and Aunty Amina smeared the mehndi all over Nadia's palms. It was cold and pasty and had a funny smell. Auntie said mysteriously. With her wooden stick, she began to draw the intricate designs that all the aunties loved. While she did this delicate work, she sang softly to herself a song in Urdu, one that Nadia had heard many times before. Nadia did not budge. She almost did not breathe. When Auntie was done, Mommy and the other aunts oohed and awed at the swirls and the flowers and the stars on Nadia's hands. Then Aunty Amina drew a small gold ring out of her pocket and smiled a sly smile. "Look what I brought for you, for when your hands are ready." "Thank you," Nadia said, then quickly turned to Mommy. "How long do I have to sit here?" "For a while." "What's a while?" "Be patient, Nadia. Remember, sabr, patience." Nadia watched Mommy and the aunts walk out of the room to gaze at the wedding dress again. Nadia sat and sat. She sat watching the door, wishing someone would come back through it. She sat watching out the window, wishing there was something interesting to see. Finally, she sat watching the big kitchen clock over the stove. Tick, tick, tick. Patience. Uncle Omar came by with a flower delivery. He stopped in the kitchen where Nadia sat, palms up, very still. "Ah, mehndi," he said, and nodded approvingly. Uncle Abdul Rahmin came next. He stopped by the kitchen to peek in the simmering pots on the stove, part of the wedding feast. "Ah, Nadia," he said, turning around, "you are so quiet and still. I didn't know you were there." "I'm showing everyone I have sabr," she said. That made Uncle laugh. He went over to her and gazed down at her upraised palms. "Oh, you got your hands done for the wedding. That's nice," he said. "Yes, Uncle, but really, she didn't feel it was so nice." After a while, a long while, Aunty Amina came and rinsed off the mehndi. Nadia looked down. She had amber hands with deep orange flowers and swirls and stars. Her hands did not look like her hands. They looked as if they belonged to someone else. She didn't want these hands that didn't look like her hands. Auntie slipped the ring on her finger, and Nadia rubbed its smooth, shiny surface with her thumb. Now it was time for the wedding. Nadia stood at the beginning of the long, red carpeted aisle. Everyone in the banquet hall looked back at her. She moved one foot. It wasn't frozen. And except for the flutter of butterflies, her stomach felt fine. She scooped up a handful of petals from her basket, remembering to toss them first on one side, then the other. She saw a sea of eyes following her. Her feet stayed with the beat in her head. It wasn't so hard. She almost glided down the aisle as she let go of the flower petals. But then the bright amber stone in her ring caught the glittering light, and Nadia noticed her hands for the first time. It seemed the swirls and tiny flowers and stars, the bright amber color, the deep orange fingertips. Her heart began to pound at the sight of those hands that she'd have to take to school on Monday. Those hands that looked as if they belonged to someone else. She lost the rhythm then and brought her foot down so fast that she nearly stumbled. She felt her face grow hot and imagined it as red as pomegranate. She looked over at the cousins. One was giving her flat, heavy-lidded look. A tiny smile was starting on another one's lips, as if she were getting ready to laugh. Behind her hand, the third leaned over and said something to the other two. Then all three turned back to watch Nadia, their eyes 3 pairs of scrutinizing slits with smirks hidden behind their solemn expressions. Nadia's breath came fast. She plucked a few petals and cast them limply. Then her eyes met Grandma's. Grandma's eyes were filled with tears, but her mouth had a happy smile. She looked at Mommy and Daddy next. Their smiles were full of tenderness, and the aunts and the uncles' smiles were full of affection. Her feet found the rhythm, and she went on, one foot in front of the other, forgetting her hands as she dipped into the basket and sprinkled the flower petals first on one side, then the other, all the way to the end of the aisle. After the ceremony, one by one, the aunts came over to admire Nadia's hands and have her twirl around to show off her curls. The uncles came over to lift her chin and smile down at her. Grandma came over and lifted one hand, then the other. "You know what, Nadia?" she whispered. "When I look at your hands, it's as if I'm looking at my past and future at the same time. Did you know that?" "No, Grandma," Nadia said. What she knew was that her hands made Grandma happy, and Mommy and Daddy and the aunts and uncles, so they made her happy too. She thought about Monday at school. Maybe she could show her hands during sharing time. Linda Murakami came with her grandmother's kimono once, and Rashid shared the night cloth his mother brought back from her trip to Africa. She would share her hands from Pakistan. Nadia looked down at her hands. She turned them this way and that. Her hands didn't look as if they belonged to someone else, she decided. They looked as if they belonged to her. And the publisher wishes to thank Javed Aslam of the Consulate General of Pakistan and Zara Khan, editor of the Pakistan Association of Greater Boston Newsletter, for their help in creation of this book. And that is the story of Nadias Hands. And I love this because, well, one of my dear friends, they often do this with their hands for special ceremonies. And I'm so excited to do a live Talita interview with her son all about mehndi to learn more about it. And I also think that this is really important because it is looking a little bit different. And as children, sometimes we don't want to look different from our classmates. When I was little, I was one of the only ones who had parents from another country. I had a name that was unusual at the time. And at first I was like, ooh, I don't know. Then I'm like, wait a second, that makes me unique. And it was great that I had parents that spoke 3 languages. I'm glad that I speak a little bit of German. So it's important for us as parents to remember maybe sometimes our kids are sensitive about a difference, but if we help remind them why we have that difference, they might feel more comfortable about it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. Have a wonderful weekend, or maybe you're watching this and it is the weekend.